Welcome to Stage Dive, a podcast where we go deep on the art of live performance to help artists perform better on stage. I am your host, Jack Dawkins. I am a rapper, poet, and storyteller out of Boulder, Colorado. Our guest this evening is Glenn Webb. He is the director of programs for the Dairy Art Center here in Boulder, Colorado. Glenn has been working in theater and stagecraft for more than 25 years, and by his count, which I think is accurate, he's seen over 10,000 individual performances, which means he gets the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours stamp of approval. Glenn is unique in that he has worked both the back-of-house technical side of a performance and is now the director of programming, thinking more about the audience experience, and being able to hold both of those in his mind is truly, truly unique. During our conversation, we talk about the art of audience participation. We talk about how you, as a young performer, can approach a venue and have the greatest chance of getting your show put on. We talk about the do's and don'ts of what makes a great show. It's an amazing episode. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, and as a performer, the more about tech, the better off you'll be, because sometimes you're going to have to do it yourself. You're going to have to do your own. And then sometimes you'll need to have the vocabulary to be able to talk to the technicians to make sure that they are able to support you the way you want to be supported.
Is that one of the biggest areas that you see people getting stuck?
That is one big area, yeah, is that they don't know how to ask for what they need, and they a lot of times end up asking for a lot of things they don't need, or have no idea what they need, and then it's, I don't even know where to start with you, and you have to, you can waste a lot of time playing around with a lot of options that if they explore some of that on their own, well, then it helps you all get to what you're looking for the best. Because ideally, I come at this from a little different angle than I think a lot of people who produce shows and book performers and whatnot, in that I come from the tech side. I was a sound engineer and production manager and tech director for a long time before I came over to the dark side and started promoting and producing shows.
Is that one of those funny things where, like, in restaurants, front of house, back of, it's getting better, but you are kitchen or you are not? That is like a distinction. So within theater, would you say it's be on the technical side versus the production side? Those are one building, two worlds?
Oftentimes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, front of house, a lot of times in performance, just means the house manager, the box office, the other people. And a fair amount of actual interaction does happen between the tech world, those people, and front of house staff, because they're both working together putting on the show.
Right.
The main disconnect is between office staff who work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and then show staff who are both front of house and tech, who work show schedules, which is a lot of times the opposite of that.
2 to midnight, Wednesday through Sunday.
Exactly. And so those people, oftentimes, that's where the big disconnect comes. And so that's where it's interesting for me to now be on the management side of things. To be a director of programs here at the Dairy Art Center is that I have a lot of empathy for the show people. Yes. And I also, having put on shows for so long on the backstage side, have always strived to find a way to make that process as smooth and comfortable and seamless as possible for the performers, so that they can focus on their craft. Because that's the main thing, is that whether you're a storyteller or a musician, comedian, whatever, actor, you got a lot going on in your head and your ego's on the line. That's the difference between the stage manager or the sound engineer or the lighting director and the performer, that a lot of times technicians didn't quite get. It's just like the stakes are so much higher for the performer, because when they're out there on stage, if things go wrong, it feels like you're going to die doing crazy wild effects. But for the most part, I don't want them thinking about me. I want them thinking about the performer. As far as the comfort, well then, for the most part, there's a little bit of a different thing there. And for the most part, I don't want to make the audience too comfortable. I want to make their process of experiencing the show feel very normal and real and authentic. But oftentimes when you're experiencing performance, it is not comfortable.
There should be edges.
There should be edges, exactly. There should be tension and release. That's what drives the whole thing.
Yes.
And that's never true more than in, I think, stand-up comedy, where we actually turn the thermostat down 10 degrees before the show and let it cool down the room, because you don't want an audience for comedy to be lethargic. You want them to feel a little on edge and say, I'm cold, I'm uncomfortable. And so when the comedian does that tension release.
A step back. I think the skill set of being in the middle, of understanding people who are here and, for better or worse, have spreadsheets. Or this is how the theater is performing, this is what we need to do, this is our budget, et cetera, et cetera. Going all the way to the other side, which is, it's almost like three worlds, because there's office, and then even within theater, as you mentioned, there's technical side and there's performing side. Is that a skill set?
Yeah, so that did come over time. It's okay. I had empathy for performers, having been in a garage band back in college and plays in high school and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But to have empathy for management took a while to be, because a lot of times you're in a situation where the constraints of the venue and the budget and everything almost forces you into an antagonistic role with management. You always feel like they're not giving you enough support to do your job as well as you would like to.
Yes.
And oftentimes performers feel that way as well, in terms of, I'm putting my whole everything into this, and then you're not even going to really pay me reasonably for it or give me the tech support that I need or
Right.
whatever. And so I try to deconstruct that and say, no, the management there, the people who pay the bills and keep the building open, they're how all of this can happen at all.
Right.
And we're all on the same team. We're all trying to create these experiences. And management is doing the best they can. And so to try to be in that way and to try to turn everything into a partnership, so that so if somebody does come to me, while we were setting up, you're giving the example of, I want to put on a show. I'm a performer. How do I do my own show? How do I do that? Then the first step is that we all want to share risk. We all want to come at it together and say, how can this work for all of us? So that everybody benefits. And if things go not according to plan, everybody shares the same amount of risk, more or less.
Yes.
As such, I want to know that it's a pretty good risk coming at it. Now, with my manager hat on, of saying, you're going to want to do this show here if I don't have to commit a lot of resources to it. If all you need is a theater space from me for 4 hours, and you have all your tech stuff together and done, and all you need to do is hand me a thumb drive with a few audio cues, and I give you a microphone, and you have 4 light cues that you want to do, and they're really easy to come by, then it's great. I don't have to put a whole lot into this, and now it's a lot easier for me to say yes.
Yes. That makes sense.
Yeah. As well as if you also say, and I have this track record. If you were a storyteller, I've done a dozen story slams, get a really good response. I've done my own coffee house shows or whatever, smaller situation shows or even bigger situation shows. But I have a record, I have a following, people will want to come out to see me. Or I have a hook that the kind of performance this is will resonate with people in this way, and it works, and it's okay, great, that's fine, I'm ready to go.
I'm gonna throw marketing in a parking lot, because I definitely have questions about that, because I think my experience is that all performers, that's music, that's theater, that's all over the universe, it's like, how do I put myself out there in a way that doesn't feel terrible? How do I present that to a theater in a way that feels good?
Authentic without arrogance.
And what are reasonable expectations for partnership? I, as performer, I'm absolutely going to bust my butt to make sure that we get people in the door. What should I reasonably expect of a theater to support? And are there any things you've seen that were super successful? But before we go there, I want to step back. I'm curious, like, the idea that bringing you simplicity as the theater or as the manager makes a ton of sense, right? You feeling like it will be easy for you to successfully present the show the way the performer intends. It's synergy. That sounds very aligned. How do you think about the balance between stripping away too much and oversimplifying versus allowing for the artistic expression? Like, either what do those conversations look like, or how do you think about that balance?
And that's where if you have a real track record, or I have lots of collaborations, I'm a performer who has done a lot of collaborations with choreographers and musicians, and I'm doing this thing that's going to be complicated. I'm telling you right off the bat that this is going to be a 3-ring circus going into it. But I've done this before, and it has been successful. And the partners that I want to collaborate with also have that track record. And what we're working on here is a unique thing that hasn't been done before, and a unique show. And we would like you to be part of us bringing this unique show. Then it's, oh, wow. Okay, this is an opportunity that's worth investing in for more of that. And a lot of times you can get a lot out of a little. That's a real subtle nuance there about working with tech, is that small things can actually be really good that novices don't necessarily understand, that there are ways that you can just a slow fade to black or whatever, or if you want to shock people, a sudden blackout, things like that is always effective. Really a nice, simple things to ask for to make it support your performance. But then other ways in which people will sometimes have outlandish expectations for what is possible when it's, what you want. And this I would run into when I was a production manager at the Boulder Theater a lot, especially with people who weren't in the arts. They were like some nonprofit organization who wanted to do their big gala at the Boulder Theater. So they're going to rent out a big venue, and they want this big spectacle to happen on stage. And so they say, we've hired a big band, and we've hired, and we have this local swing dance group that's going to come, and then we've got 5 other things that are all going to happen on stage, and we all want them to happen in this 45-minute time period, with 0-minute changeovers between acts. And it's just for that, you need a budget for the Oscar award ceremony budget. They can do that. For us, we need time. We need or more resources, bring in more labor, whatever it is. But a lot of times people have unrealistic expectations about those things because they see it on television and it looks simple.
I want to make sure I'm understanding. Would you say that for a person who is just starting out, because you mentioned track record, which of course, like the more experience people have, the easier it's going to be to work with them. But for someone like me, I would benefit more from figuring out what I can do within the context of my performance to push the envelope or make it more exciting, rather than thinking like, what lighting can I do, or what stagecraft can I have, or all these other things. Because at the end of the day, the easier I make it for you, the more likely it is that you can take a risk on me as a young performer.
Any chance that performers get to actually work tech, take it. Because working a show, not as a performer, but as a technician, gives you a lot of insight into how all of those things happen, and then it makes it a lot better. And they're always looking for crew.
Sure.
So definitely worth doing. If your thing is music, then Fox Theater, Boulder Theater, Z2 Entertainment has an internship program. You won't get paid for it, but you'll get to work shows.
And you'll learn a lot.
Yeah. Once you get some experience, Mackey Auditorium's always looking for hands, that kind of thing. There are plenty of places where you can get some experience on the tech side, and I always think that's worth doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other thing is, just as you're starting out, it's like you have a show, but maybe you don't have a full show. You've got a solid 20 minutes. Don't try to force that 20 minutes into 75 minutes of fluff. Find other people like you who have solid chunks, and then come together and say, we're going to do a showcase. You don't have to be Second City to put on a showcase of students. You can be you and say, I know other people who are doing what I am doing, and we want to just all come together. That way you all get to share some of the expense, and then you all get to build your chops. And as well as you build an audience really well that way. And that's a nutcracker theory of you get a big audience if you have a big cast. You put 40 kids out on stage during the party scene in Nutcracker, and now you have 80 people in the audience guaranteed.
Is that something you see a lot? People reaching out and saying, hey, I'm great at this, you're great at this, you're great at this. Let's make that 90 minutes and put on a show.
I don't see that a lot. I see that a bit in the dance community. I would say that the Colorado dance community is great in that they feel very cooperative. They feel like a community. They're like, there's a lot of interaction between them that feels very supportive. They're looking to help everybody else out. And a lot of times they come out to each other's shows. It's like they're friends. That's a really nice community in that way, and that they're very supportive. Theater companies feel a little bit less that way. They feel a little bit more siloed and isolated and competitive. They a lot of times feel like they're engaged in a zero-sum game to where there's limited resources that they're all competing for.
Limited resources in terms of there's a set audience in Boulder that'll go to a set number of shows, and so if you're carving up the pie 3 ways, you want the biggest slice of that.
Audience time in the theater.
Okay.
That has not been as much of a case coming out of COVID. People have canceled a lot of shows. But pre-COVID, that was a lot of the problems that we had, is that we didn't have enough time in our theaters for all of the people who wanted the theaters, especially prime season time. If you come out of season, if you look at January or summertime, then there's a lot more. If you're looking at October through December and March, April, May, then it's like
tough.
Really tough.
Got it. That is valuable for me to know. I do want to go to marketing, but I want to go back. So you worked at the Boulder Theater for
10 years.
Iconic venue, obviously within Boulder, I would argue within Colorado, and possibly even regionally, nationally. It's just a really cool space that's had a ton of different acts come through. What do you feel like were some of the biggest lessons you took from working in a place like that? Not to diminish the dairy, by the way, which is gorgeous and amazing and et cetera. But I hope to play both here and the Boulder one day. But I think the Boulder, particularly for musicians, it's special.
And that's where I really did hone my chops, to where when I was production manager there, a lot of times I would, just working again with limited resources, book myself to mix monitors for a show as well, since I can stage manage and mix monitors at the same time. But that puts me really right in the seat of trying to support the performers as best I can. Of really, when you're mixing monitors for a band, you're in their shoes trying to figure out what it is they need to perform the best they possibly can, and to do so as unobtrusively as possible. So it's like the skill of being very attentive, but never inserting yourself in a situation unnecessarily. Because a lot of times their focus is on the music and on the other bandmates and all of this other stuff that's all going on, their equipment and all this stuff. And so for the most part, it's stay out of it until there's a moment when you're truly useful, and then you step in. And also just creating a sense of calm, that everything's under control, everything's going to work out okay. If there is a technical problem, you don't have to announce it. If it hasn't affected them yet, let them be ignorant of that while you work on it.
Yes. Have you heard of the swan analogy? Gliding above the surface, churning furiously underneath the water.
Exactly. Yeah.
Can you give an example of a time when you did need to step in? Like, again, like novice perform. What would be an example where you, as someone who is either mixing monitors or stage manager, would be like, shit?
A funny one was actually pre-Boulder Theater up at Chautauqua Auditorium, and it was for a Leo Kottke show. And it's just a solo, him with a guitar show, and he would switch back and forth between 6 and 12 string. And then he had this one song where he wanted to use his effect pedal on his guitar. And he's not normally one for effects. He's a pretty straightforward guy, but he did this one song and he liked the effects. But the 9-volt battery in his pedal had gone out. And so there he is in the middle of the show, and he goes to do this song. It's like, oh, shoot, I think my battery's dead. Anybody have a 9-volt battery? And I'm stage managing, and I say, do another song, I'll get back to you. And the director of Chautauqua Association at that time lived on premises up at Chautauqua Park and with his wife and young child. And so I ran over to his cottage, knocked on his door at 9 o'clock at night and said, Phil, have you got a 9-volt battery? And so he grabs one of his kids' toys and pulls a 9-volt battery out of his toy.
Oh, sorry, Junior.
And I go running back into the auditorium between songs, run out with that 9-volt battery and swap it out. And then he was able to do that song. Also, just in terms of not needing to worry about the blame, because you'll end up just being very calm and just suggesting a methodical, one step at a time problem solving. Because half the time, for musicians especially, it's going to be something in their gear, not yours. But you don't want to go there right off the bat.
Yeah, no, I see that going poorly.
And so you can start with, all right, I'm going to test my line out to you, put a known sound source on that, test that. Okay, so we know this mic line is good. Now I'm going to plug that into our GI box. Okay, then I'm plugging 1/4-inch cable here, then put it into a known source. Okay, that's good. So all the way up to here is good. And then from there on, it's their gear. And then that gives them the confidence of, oh, okay, so now I can start working through my effects, pedals, or whatever, and figure out what it is in my gear that has not working.
And it's de-escalation, right?
Exactly.
It's like before we say who fucked up, it's like, let's just see all the things that could be wrong, not even worry about whose it is.
Start on my end and work out until I get to you.
Yes.
And then I'll hand it over to you, and as well as modeling that process. There's no blame thing of things go wrong. This is me just being methodical.
My next question is vaguely impossible, but I'm excited to see how you answer it. I can't even fathom the number of shows you would have seen / stage managed / mixed for while you were at the Boulder. What?
Nearly 10,000 individual performances. 10,000 times of having to do an input list and make sure everything works and make sure the performer's okay. And
I'm sure your perspective is unique given that you are actually concerned with like the technical outputs. What of the 10,000, which ones are memorable and why? Which performances really stand out? And hopefully not because someone royally goofed, which I'm sure you had some. You had more than some.
Yeah.
Like what really made a great performance for you?
Okay, so there are a few. One is Sean Colvin, earlier in her career, on her way up, getting shotgun down that Avalanche, steady on that time period, just as a sort of a breakout artist, but not touring with a band yet.
Okay.
And I'm mixing monitors, and she's just coming in, just her with a guitar. And this always impresses me when a musician can just produce so much sound and so much groove and feeling and just have a serious pocket that they just really set up and lock into, and then just with an instrument and a voice, just create this whole landscape, this whole space, and just draw an audience in, and everybody's just leaning into it. And I'm just behind the monitor desk, and I'm leaning into it. I am just hooked. I've got her queued up in my Q wedge, and I've got made my own mix so I can EQ it just the way I like, and I'm just hearing it, just listening to it, and just going, oh, wow. And I'm just stunned. Yeah. And then on the other end of things, people who much more complicated, but also at the other end of their careers, we had Lionel Hampton, great jazz vibraphone player, with a full band, with a 15-piece band. And this is like within 2 or 3 years of his death. So this is the very end of his life. It took him almost a minute to get from the wings out to the instrument. He's like moving so slow. And he's not rushing it, though. He's like, the band's just vamping, and he's going to get there when he gets there. And he slowly gets out to his vibraphone and then just
jams.
Wails, just wails. And it's just, that's true artistry. Yeah. And then there used to be a Colorado Dance Festival way back in the day. And they would use different venues for different years. And one year they did what they called the Great Tap Reunion. And so they focused on percussive dance. And they did it at the Boulder Theater. And so it was like 3 days in a row of all these greats in the tap dance world. And to see these legends just doing amazing things, all with their own unique style. And just to get to be there and be part of that. And at that point I was mixing front of house sound for that, and to just try to really get the sound of those taps out so that the audience could really understand that. And then later on, so now fast forward 15 years into the future, well then, because of a show up at the Lincoln Center in Fort Collins, and I was working for a sound company, and Savion Glover is out on tour, and he's doing this classical Savion where he's performing tap in front of a double string quartet. So it's 8 string players plus acoustic bass player.
Wow.
And so they're trying to mic those classical instruments, and he has pickups on his tap floor, and trying to mix all that, and then trying to have the performers hear each other and have him hear them. And it was the very beginning of the tour, and things were going wrong, the owner of the sound company said, oh, part of the problem is that you're not using the right kind of microphones for the string instruments. Here, let me fix you up with the right thing. And so he, because he did sound for the Colorado Springs Symphony and stuff, had the right thing, brought all that out, got them all, saved the day. And then Savion said, okay, great. I have to finish out my tour and I need somebody to do this at every venue. And so Chris said, hey, what about you? What do you? And so I said, sure, I'll go out with Savion Glover for a month. And so that led to several more tours and a trip to Europe and all this stuff, getting to actually work with Savion Glover in lots of different contexts. And that was really amazing because in terms of a performer who completely commits, he holds nothing of himself back. When he goes out on stage, his entire focus, it's just like watching someone go into a trance. It's like a Sufi dancer or something. He has no attention to spare for anything else in the world. He puts it all into that moment, what he is doing in that performance. He is fully committed. And it just is stunning to see someone with that level of technique use that level of commitment and to be so authentic in the performance. That's another big thing, is that authenticity, to where it's, this person is coming at this because this is deep in their soul and that's what they have to do and what they have to be. And that's something that when you sit through a few thousand performances becomes like immediately apparent. And to me, I was always surprised at audiences that didn't see through it. This is a band of people who actually don't care very much about the actual music they're playing. They really care about playing rock and roll star on stage. They care about dressing up, about playing the part. They have honed their technique. They have plenty of technique. But where they're coming at it from is a place of, let's just do this.
They love the trappings of it more than the real art.
And to me, it's just like obvious right away. And looking at the audience going, can you not see that the emperor has no clothes here? And part of where I came to that from was I actually spent a year as assistant tech director at Naropa, back when it wasn't Naropa University, back when it was Naropa Institute. And then they had their PAC, their Performing Arts Center, which is basically the old gymnasium of the elementary school they took over. And the thing about contemplative arts is that authenticity is first, comes first before even technique. And so I ended up working a lot of shows, student showcases, where technically it's not that great. This is not a great dancer. This is not a great musician. But what it is, this is a person who is putting themselves completely into it. They are, even if it's coming out not polished, it is them.
It may not be a great dance, but that is a dancer, period.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is a person loving it, loving the performance. And that makes it easy to love the performance too.
Yeah. I think authenticity is getting thrown around more and more. And I understand it can be such a valuable term, and also one that, what is it? Because I think the guys, or I assume guys, maybe girls, who are dressed like rock stars and playing rock songs and screaming on stage and making out with groupies and blah, blah, blah. That's authentic. That may be like, this is the life I want and I'm living the life that I want. There's that version. So to me, there's some intersection of like authenticity and humanity. Like when you talk about Sean Colvin in Pocket and just captivating, that is assuredly her, but it's also got to be something that can resonate with everyone. It's both.
And I think part of that, that key is the humanity, is the connection with the audience and what they are sharing and what they expect back is very different. There's a vulnerability oftentimes involved, honesty, and then there's a sense of not being manipulative, of saying, all I want from the audience is for them to witness me.
Yes.
To validate me just through witnessing it. I don't need to be adored. I just need to be witnessed.
Yes.
And so it's a little bit different of a relationship there, I think. And that's now coming at this from the dairy, now I'm working at the Dairy Arts Center, and I'm really trying to bring it all together and see audiences and performers. And I was always trying to give the audience the best experience of the performer that I could, and then allow the performers to be comfortable. Now I'm beginning to understand the other side of that equation is giving the performer the best experience of the audience that they can. And so a lot of times that, for me at this point, just takes the form of curtain speech before the show, where I introduce the performer, trying to set that context, trying to establish with the audience of, here are the expectations. The expectations of you for this next time period is, for one thing, we're going to take our phones and we're not just going to make them quiet. We're going to make them inert. Yeah. We are going to not be experiencing things through that filter for this next time. All that this next time is about is it's about us people here in this room and what we're sharing. Let's give ourselves over to that.
Yes.
And to set an audience up like that, then for a performer to come out on stage, both parties are primed to do that thing.
Yes. I was having a conversation earlier today when I've been to different storytelling shows, like the Moth Story Slam or anything like that. There is this funny dynamic where you can tell the difference between a performer who is just excited to give their story and someone who is actively processing trauma on stage and kind of forcing people to watch. And ooh, it's uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable. And it doesn't come from a place of malice or ill will, but the energy is, ooh, it's so different and it's palpable.
And I think that comes again with what they're expecting, what they're wanting from the audience is a different kind of validation. I need you to agree with me. I was in the right. I was the victim, or I was whatever in the situation, and I'm trying to work out this drama, and I need someone to tell me, to reaffirm that I was in the right. And I feel like that's where you've gone too far.
Yes.
You've asked an audience to do something that an audience isn't supposed to do.
That's not why they're here.
No.
It's like, do you want to like blindly join in on someone's personal drama and take their side no matter what? Not really.
That's a therapist. Hopefully there's somebody in that person's life who can be that reality check. As a technician, I never felt like that was my role. As a producer, I can be a little bit more, that's my role. To where it's, all right, you've now crossed over into a strange place here, and I don't think it's working.
One more question before we get to marketing. In terms of audience participation, what do you think is the key to making that work?
It goes over to what you expect from an audience. But also, sometimes it's okay to expect a lot from an audience. Let's say Bobby McFerrin would actually get audiences to do crazy vocal polyphony during shows. Whereas I'm amazed that a bunch of amateurs, audiences members, are creating this kind of music. And for him, where it came from was, I think, largely a place of play. He was just playing. And he's saying, come play with me. You don't have to be really good at the game for the game to be fun. This game is fun for everybody, always. And to know, and he, being him, knew where the line was. This is how much I can ask. This is a little too much. Knew how to keep it simple enough in little pieces and then distribute that out over different people, so different people were each doing something simple, didn't have to think about what other people were doing, but then once they were doing it together, then it does this thing, and it's just amazing. But I think coming at it from a point of view of play and from the performer having fun, therefore the audience feels like they can have fun. It's like the first step is for the performer to demonstrate a lack of self-consciousness. Not a lack of self-awareness, but a lack of self-consciousness. A lack of like embarrassment or any worry. That's where one of my pet peeves, I always thought back watching all these performances, is when a performer comes out and says the phrase, "How are we all doing tonight?" And it's, don't take them there right now. You're here to take them somewhere else. Now you've just you've taken them out of the moment and made them stop and think, how am I doing tonight? Actually, I'm a little bummed out, because my car's making this funny noise, or I'm here with somebody that we're having a little problem with right now. And so that's how I'm doing right now, is things in my life are not always great, and I'm a little anxious about what's going to happen on stage. And you've just asked people to do that work, and it's not helpful.
They're totally out of the moment.
Don't ask them how they're doing.
Yeah.
Come out and tell them how you're doing, and then invite them to participate, to be part of that.
Yes.
I am having the most fun in my life because I get to do this thing that I love with all you people here. And thank you for coming and being part of our show. Let's have some fun. Let's do the thing. Let's go places we haven't been before. And with theater, even more, it's like the power of live theater to take a person out of themselves. That's everything. That's what makes it life-changing, is that people get perspective on the world. They have themselves 24/7.
Yeah.
If they're going to look at themselves, take them out of themselves and let them look back at themselves from some other point of view.
The beginning of what you were saying reminded me a lot of the validation piece, because I feel like what I see a lot is that the performer treats the audience like a battery. And from the moment they come out, they're just like, I need to hear you scream. I need to hear you sing these lyrics. I need to hear this. I need to hear this. And they're putting out energy, but again, the whole dynamic is goofed. And then like diminishing returns, like the audiences can't give as much over the course of the set. The energy starts to drop.
Yeah.
And it's very weird to watch because nothing about this makes sense, but it happens.
Insisting on a sing-along on the chorus when the audience is like not there.
It goes poorly. I'm sympathetic to both sides because like the audience doesn't like being yelled at. They certainly don't like being told what to do. And the performers are dying because they're going through the ego death of, I just asked everyone to put their hands up and there are no hands in the air. But I think back to, again, your reference to Sean Colvin. And I don't imagine she asked for anything. And I imagine she got back everything. And that's the magic of live theater. It's when the energy is genuinely exchanged, given away freely and received freely. I think that's where it's really powerful. Let me ask you about the marketing piece a little bit. So what was really helpful was establishing as I don't know what to call myself, novice, young, amateur performer, whatever, that I will get more bang for my buck learning how to create intrigue within my performance, within the four walls of my body, than I will trying to ask the theater to create spectacle around me. That makes a ton of sense. Now we need to go out and market the show from either management or theater perspective. Kind of how do you approach that? How do you think about that conversation? What can I as a performer bring to you where you're like, that's awesome. I'm so glad you've done that work. How can I show up to the theater in a way that's exciting for you from a marketing perspective?
Yeah. Okay. So several parts of that. And I'm no marketing whiz, and honestly, it's one of my least favorite parts of my job. It's hard.
It's really hard.
It's hard. But just from a nuts and bolts, if you come in with a really good, fairly concise description of your performance or your event, a couple, or like a short one, like a 25-word one, and then a longer one, like a full paragraph one, those are really useful.
Okay.
A compelling graphic and some good catchy name for your event, that's always great. What is catchy? Lean away from abstract terms, or if you have an abstract term, hook it immediately to a very concrete term, to something you can touch, smell, taste, hear, so that those two things link up. Because Lord knows I've seen things advertised where it's two abstract words that are not necessarily in the same context, butted up against each other. And then it's after I finish reading it, and if I'm on Facebook or something and I scroll past it, I can't even remember what those two words were 20 seconds later. And it might make sense to you about your performance because you've been living it, inside it, and you've abstracted all of that context out of it and interpreted it at this higher level of consciousness. But for the audience, they need something that grabs them in a sensory way. So lean towards some concrete term in there. Describe your show enough to where a person would want to come, obviously, but don't over-explain it. We've seen some really compelling marketing where it's like two words and an image, and a link. And it's, whoa, the image is striking enough, it's startling enough, it's surprising enough to where it's, okay, I'm going to click.
Yeah, I want to learn more.
I want to know. And that's a good thing to do, is to create enough information that they get out of the image and the words to where it's, oh, okay, I know this is going to be music, or I know this is going to be comedy. I know the genre, and I have a sense of the kind of the style, but I want to know more. It's seduction. It's just basic seduction.
It's shooting for the middle in some ways. Because to your point, like if you just give me two ephemeral words with no relationship and no images, I can't even mentally anchor. And at the same time, I'm thinking of like restaurant menus. If you go to a fancy tasting menu place and they're like sea air, and you're like, I don't know what the fuck that is, but apparently I'll put it in my mouth at some point. And then you go all the way down to chain where it literally has like ingredient by ingredient listed, and you're like, okay, there's not a lot of intrigue there. I understand what that is. You're shooting for, okay, I understand what the main protein is, and I get a sense of what the sides are, but I don't know how they're prepared. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like when it shows up, and I generally like these things. Let me check that out.
Exactly. And then adding video whenever possible is great.
Okay.
Especially, and for social media, also formatting your images in a couple of different ways, making an Instagram format.
Make the square, make the tall one,
make the wide one. That does a lot of our work for us so that we don't have to keep reformatting everything.
Yes, that makes a ton of sense. We talked about the copy, the short and the long description. We talked about finding this middle ground where you're describing enough, but you're leaving some intrigue. You create a folder of assets that makes it very easy for you to distribute. Anything else?
Developing young audiences for the arts is the holy grail. If you've got a show that will bring in a young audience, then that's great. For the cinema, we've had really great success doing a little sub-branding within the Bodecker Cinema brand of Friday Night Weird, because we wanted to show movies that would attract that younger, edgier audience, know that they can now come here. And it's taken a while, though. It's taken like 7 years for that brand to really build to where now it's actually, as we're rebuilding from COVID, partly because I think that audience is less risk averse about being in public, they're coming back to the movies faster than the other audience. So our Friday Night Weird movie usually outsells the other movies that week.
Fascinating.
Yeah. But again, now I'm trying to replicate that somehow for the live stuff.
Do you want people to sign up for runs? Are you more excited if someone says, I want 8 Thursdays? Or do you like people who are like, I want 1?
1.
Okay.
To start with.
Cool.
If you've got something that will serialize, that's great. But I'm not going to commit to a bunch of them until we establish
See success with 1.
Exactly. Being willing to go early week. If you can go to a Tuesday night, then that's even better. And if you can bring people out on a Tuesday night, then you've really shown something.
The ultimate. What would you love to see happening in the Dairy Theater in the next 5 or 10 years? Now, to commit you to being here, but you've seen 11 years of change, which is amazing. You've seen COVID, which was almost like another 10-year journey in 2 years of what it was like before, what it's like now, and how that's evolving. But as you look ahead, what do you hope to see more of or less of?
That's great. Some of the recent successes that we've had have been because of collaboration between social awareness, issues awareness, and the arts, and that intersection. And so a lot of times, especially for driving an audience, if you have an issue-oriented organization that is behind pushing this arts event and the two intersect, that's a really fertile space. Cultivating that intersection and recognizing the role that arts plays in society, that's great. That's really the space that we've had a lot of success, even coming out of COVID within that. And then the other thing is just more collaboration. I also dream of a time when, not to take away from the rental, the dairy was established as that shared infrastructure for the Boulder arts community, and it was largely a rental space for most of its history, and still is. That's still our primary function in the community. And I don't want to take away from that, because that's really important, and a lot of organizations just really need exactly that.
Yes.
We're a theater company. We put on 4 runs a year, 2 in the fall, 2 in the spring. We need a well-appointed theater around this size of audience for that.
Yes.
And we can be that for them, and that's great. But I can imagine a future where most of what happens within these spaces here at the Dairy is always a partnership. It's never a full one or the other. It's never, we're booking this performance, we are paying them a flat fee, they come in and they do their thing, we give them the money, they go away. Or the flip side of that is they book our venue, they come and give us the money, they put on their show, they go away, we're done.
Right.
The space in between is where I'm really liking to explore, where it's always a partnership. We're always sharing risk and sharing benefit. So everybody has some interest in seeing it succeed. Also, everyone has some sense of involvement in the process as well, which is a little hard for some creative people to give up. And I understand that. I think that territory needs to be explored rather carefully, very subtly, and with a lot of understanding and compassion. But on the other hand, I think that when you are partners, well, then it's useful at times to check in with your partner and say, how is this working for you? What about this could maybe help? Right. What's your perspective on this that maybe I'm not seeing? And it's done in that spirit, then I think it all can work. But yeah, I really see a future in which everything is a partnership. It's almost like pure socialism in a way.
Last thing, anything coming up, not in 5 or 10 years, but happening now at the Dairy that you want to just celebrate?
We've upped our game with the music productions, so we're doing a lot of concerts with national touring acts and trying to be really selective about really cherry picking the ones that, and for one thing, finding the gaps in what isn't happening in the Boulder art scene that really probably should be. That there's an audience for this, and part of that is just our size. We're that in between. We're bigger than Café Soleil or other small venues, Velvet Elk or whatever, but we're not the Fox or the Boulder Theater. But there are performers, touring performers, who are really great artists, who may not be household names, but they're people that if you take the chance of actually coming out and see them, you'll be stunned at how great they are, and you'll be really glad you did. In the same way, that audience who came to that Sean Colvin show at the Boulder Theater, I think I heard a song of hers on KBCO, I liked it, I'll risk my $20, and then came out and fell in love. So we're working on, and we're calling it a Musical Vanguard series, and so we had John Pizzarelli Trio, great jazz guitarist from New York, just last month. Coming up just next week is another great guitar player from Canada, Ariel Posen, really great slide guitar player, just coming out as a power trio. He's been voted in some Canadian music press as the breakout artist of the year in Canada.
Amazing. Yeah,
he's stunning, just a really great player, amazing, and great songwriter, really good stuff. And so that's next week, and then followed up on August 12th with, out of New Orleans, this 7-piece band, Miss Mojo. Huge fun, really uplifting stuff. And then the week after that, this real up-and-coming jazz vocalist and violinist, Emmeline, coming as a 5-piece. She is somebody that it will definitely be like you saw her when she was playing a 250-seat venue in Boulder, and then the next time through she'll be at Red Rocks, and definitely one of those to catch. Outside of that, we have an ongoing relationship with the Blind Cafe, doing these music and conversation and food in the dark experiences here at the Dairy. Total darkness, like complete darkness, not any light at all, can't see a thing, with blind ambassadors that lead the audience members into the dark space. So there's a little light lock, and so then once they're in the space, they haven't seen it at all. And they spend the next 90 minutes sharing food and conversation, and then band plays music and has sharing with the audience, and it's just really powerful, really, and the blind ambassadors run the conversation in the dark. Really amazing experiences, and so we're continuing that relationship. We've got a couple of those coming up that are going to be really great.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Stage Dive, and thank you again to our guest, Glenn Webb. He was phenomenal and very brave for being the first ever guest on our show. If you're interested in supporting what we're doing, I'm going to ask for what I don't think a lot of people ask for, which is I don't want reviews or social sharing. Send this to a friend. Send this to one person that you think would really benefit from hearing something that they heard today. I'm not interested in having 1 billion people tune in. I'm not trying to grow this to something massive. I really just want this to get into the right hands of people who can actually enjoy it, listen to it, and take something meaningful from it. Again, I'm your host, Jack Dawkins. Thank you again, and I'll be back. Peace.